presenters agreed that this webinar could be published, and I think that's fine and very good because of the knowledge sharing, and that people can have it in a later moment. Because with 210 registrations means as well as a wide interest, knowing as well that ocean energy is a worldwide interest, from the United States still to Europe to Australia, India. I think that's very important to know. I told you already, my name is Matthijs, the chair. Just a few slides for you to share what we are doing. That's this one. See if it's working. I have to go to the presenters mode. So it's a collaboration between the governments, industry and research organizations, helping to shape a sustainable energy future. Really, we try to increase the collaborations to have new initiatives, and we do this alongside different tasks in our work. Parts could be depending on the different technologies. We have groups working on wave, on tidal energy, but also an ocean thermal gradient, and salinity gradient is also part of our work. In this slide, you see as well the different members, and there you can see there is a huge and different interest, because we have, of course, the resource availability all over. The Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, all the oceans are giving us opportunities to take this energy out. And that's, of course, the question how we are doing this. And there we can learn from each other. And that's also what we would like to realize in the International Energy TCP. So there is a different interest, different representations, the industry research organization, universities, but especially also on the governmental, because that's part of an ecosystem. If you'd like to bring new technologies to the market, then different actors have to work together in that respect. So in today's webinar from the IEA-OES, we give a bit of an ocean energy outlook, what is happening in Europe. And we have three distinguished speakers, Evdokia Tapoglou, Jean-François, Filipot, and Henry Jeffrey, all delegates in our technology collaboration platform, and they're all happy to share what they are doing, what is happening in France, UK, and also with Evdokia on a European level. You see in the right corner, when you are interested, I would really visit our website, where you can see what kind of actions we have, but also our annual report. And I think it's a very valuable source of information. And I have here a copy of the last year's one, but here you see the new year's one, where you see for each country which is member of our IEA TCP is reporting on the different projects, on the progress towards the commercialization of the ocean energy different technologies. So really have it to our website and to find. On the last one is a bit of a thank you. I should do it at the end, but I would like to say already thank you to WAVEC, which has been organizing this webinar and to care for all the technologies. So I would like to give the floor to Evdokia Tapoglou. She is Policy Project Officer in the Joint Research Center from the European Commission. And yeah, she is analyzing what is happening in the offshore renewable energy sector. And happy to give you the floor, Evdokia.
Yeah, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, thank you, Evdokia. For the listeners, I think it's very important. You can put your questions in the chat already, but we will have the questions and answers at the end after the three speakers, so they have the time to speak, and then we have the Q&A at the end. I think that's good for you to know. But if you have already a question coming up, don't hesitate to put it already in the Q&A part of the Zoom session. Thank you, Evdokia. To you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Evdokia Tapoglou. I work from the European Commission from the Joint Research Center, and I'm going to present to you some facts, some statistics, some policies and projects in the EU, especially, and what happened in 2022. So, starting off, the European Commission is supporting the development of ocean energy sector through an array of activities, from the Green Deal, the Energy Union, and the SET Plant. And in November 2020, the European Commission launched the Offshore Renewable Energy Strategy, highlighting the role that both offshore wind and ocean energy technologies have, and how they're expected to contribute to the EU's goals of climate neutrality by 2050. So this strategy proposes a target of at least 1 gigawatt by 2030 for ocean energy installed in the EU, and 40 gigawatt by 2050. Last year in 2022, and in response to the global energy market disruptions caused by Russian invasion of Ukraine, the European Commission presented REPowerEU that aims at saving energy, increasing the clean energy production, and most importantly, diversifying the energy supply. So specifically in the context of ocean energy, REPowerEU proposes the speed up of permitting processes by recognizing renewable energy as an overriding public interest. It also fast tracks energy projects by introducing go-to areas, and it also introduced the concept of regulatory sandboxes, where testing is getting more easy, especially for innovative technologies such as ocean energy technologies. The European Commission also cooperates closely with the member states to increase support for ocean energy and to encourage them to include them in trajectories for marine renewable energies in their national energy and climate plans, the NECPs. So far, there have been limited integration of ocean energy in NECPs, only for Ireland, Portugal, and Spain. But at the end of 2022, the European Commission invited the member states to revise their NECPs. The draft will be submitted by the end of June, and we're hoping to see some progress and some more countries integrating ocean energy in their NECPs. And most recently, early in 2023, we had also the Net Zero Industry Act, which aims at increasing the investments and improving the permitting processes for strategic net zero technologies. That includes all offshore renewables, both offshore wind, but also ocean energy. So next, not exactly policies, but activities that enable policy making and enable the quickest rollout of ocean energy. The European Commission also set up the Clean Energy Technology Observatory, SOEDE for short, in 2022, that helps to address the complexity and the multi-phased character of the transition to climate neutral society in Europe. So SOEDE is a joint initiative from the Joint Research Center, who will run the observatory, and the Directorate Generals for Research and Innovation and Energy, which come from the policy side. So amongst the technologies that were included at the observatory is the ocean energy, mainly focusing on tidal stream and wave energy. We're producing some reports. This is the one that we produced in 2022, and later in the year we will have one for 2023 as well. And basically these reports includes all aspects of the technology development, and they aim at providing evidence-based into the policy-making processes and increasing the effectiveness of R&I policies. It also monitors the EU research and innovation activities, but also assesses the competitiveness of the EU clean energy sector and the positioning compared to the global market. We also have some other initiatives. For example, we have the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative that aims at reducing the energy costs and increasing the production of renewable energy, the construction of energy storage facilities and demand response systems, and in general, overall to improve the energy security for islands, and which are mostly reliant currently on imports. So moving on to deployment, specifically for 2022, we can see in this graph the cumulative installed capacity. But for 2022, we have a very limited amount of new full-scale installations, both for wave and for tidal energy. Specifically for tidal energy, the focus was more on niche markets, so smaller capacity devices, where the focus was on utilizing ocean energy for specific applications, for powering some isolated communities, or using some sites that they were they had less powerful tidal currents. And something similar with wave energy, where we had limited installations, but at a full scale. But they are promising enough to include in the energy mix in the future. So in terms of funding, throughout the year, the EU has played a key role in funding ocean energy activities and contributed significantly in all stages of the technology development. And not only for the technology itself, like moving from low TRL to higher TRL, but also supporting businesses in order to get the device in the water and on the market. There are multiple funding mechanisms currently going on. We have the Innovation Fund, which is one of the largest funding programs for the demonstration of innovative low carbon technologies. And ocean energy fits quite well in this fund. It also aims at big flagship projects throughout the EU. Another funding mechanism is Blue Invest, which is managed by the European Investment Fund and supports early stage businesses, SMEs and scale-ups, also in the ocean energy sector. And also we have other kinds of public funding. We have the Horizon 2020 that is still going on, but we don't have new projects. Horizon Europe took over from Horizon 2020. The InvestEU, the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund. And in total, there are more than 170 funded projects with a total budget of more than 500 million euros supporting ocean energy. Specifically for Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020, we can see here all the projects that were funding in the past under these schemes. We had three categories, the wave, the tidal, but also in both categories that they help the ocean energy sector in general and not specifically one technology. Horizon Europe in 22 had the call for projects for the demonstration of sustainable tidal energy farms, which had a budget of 40 million euros. And in 2023, there will be another call for the demonstration of wave energy farms with a budget of I think 38 million euros. As well as we have some development of innovation for PTO and control systems for wave energy devices with smaller budget, around 8 million euros. Currently, we have ongoing 21 Horizon 2020 projects, and we have 4 from the new Horizon Europe projects already funded. Just as an example of the projects, here are the new projects for 2022. We have 2 for floating PV structures that will not only help floating free PV sector, but will also help the ocean sector, because any knowledge we get from the structures can help all kinds of offshore renewables. We have 1 project for ocean thermal energy conversion, 1 for tidal energy, focusing on the blades of the tidal turbines. And we have also the European Maritime Fisheries and Aquaculture Fund that funded 1 project, Flora, that has to do with wave energy. So as a concluding remark and how we can develop further ocean energy, we have a SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities and threats of ocean energy in the EU. For the strengths, we have a large number of projects in the pipeline, so we're expecting deployments to increase in the next years. We have multiple EU companies that have developed significant experience and knowledge in the field. And also EU is in a good position in terms of investments, funding, and technological status. But there are some weaknesses. The commercialization of ocean energy technologies is still in early stages, with a limited number of projects operating at a large scale. And that poses challenges for scaling up and even more for cost reduction. Also, there is a need for a comprehensive and harmonized regulatory framework, specifically to ocean energy, in order to support its development and ensure a level playing field between all the renewables. There are also some significant opportunities. So under the right conditions, we expect ocean energy to contribute around 10% of the EU power demand by 2050. Also due to their capabilities both for energy production but also for alternative uses such as desalination or aquaculture, they have the potential to drive the blue economy as a whole. As already mentioned, are in a good position. They are leading the field, and there are substantial export opportunities both for technology but also for the knowledge. And the threats, currently the number of commercial projects on the pipeline is increasing, but there's significantly more that needs to be done in order to achieve the ambitious targets. But also there are some administrative barriers as well, and that is due to the not well-defined procedures and the environmental impacts. So licensing procedures are often long and sometimes complicated. We're hoping these things will get fixed as the number of deployment increases. But currently, it's a huge threat from this sector. So, yeah, that's all that I wanted to present. So, thank you for your attention, and I think we're doing questions at the end, right?
No, exactly, Evdokia. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very interesting. I see that there are already two questions in the chat, so you can think already about the answer. From my side as well already to think about, you're saying more needs to be done. What would be the two most important things which you would do or suggest to stimulate ocean energy technology? The two most important according to you. But let's go first to Jean-François Filipot. He is Scientific Director at France Énergie Marine. Welcome in this webinar. And yeah, happy to see what is ongoing in France. And I think there are many opportunities over there. So it's really very interesting. Jean-François, à vous.
Yes. Thank you very much, Matthijs. Yes, I'm pleased to be here to talk about some advances in France regarding ocean energy systems. So I'm working for France Énergie Marine, which is a research institute in France, which is dedicated to offshore renewable energies, including ocean energy systems, but also offshore wind. And because we are doing research, I will be focusing a bit more about research than policy compared to Evdokia today. Okay, so still some word about the status of the ocean energy policies in France. So as most of the country in Europe, we have some targets regarding the Energy Act, and we want to deploy around 40% of renewable energies in the electricity mix by 2030. But it covers anything from PV to wave energy converters, for instance. For ocean energies, the objectives are still quite limited. I would say that the French government is quite cautious, maybe letting the other government taking risk and waiting to see what are the outcome. And there is only some public incentive for prototypes and pilot farms. And in contrast, there is clear targets for offshore wind, which, for instance, is 40 gigawatts by 2050. Still, there is some promising initiative in France regarding demonstrators and pilot farms for tidal energy converters and wave energy converters. And we can hope that there will be some weight of this promising initiative to put some clear targets in the next version of the policy. What we call the policy is the strategic document that you can see on the right-hand side that define the target at 5 to 10 years horizons. And there will be a new document to be published in 2024 that we are really looking forward to read, and where we expect to have a good objective in terms of ocean energy deployment. Okay, so I will speak a bit more about R&D activities that are going on in France, and maybe to reply from my point of view to the question that was asked to Evdokia in the meantime, asking how to accelerate the deployment of ocean energy system. What I can see now is there is a lot of investment in offshore wind, and there is a lot of research that is being done on some components that are actually shared between offshore wind and wave energy, for instance, such as mooring lines or dynamic power cables. And I think we should really try to leverage what is learned thanks to this project dedicated to offshore wind to transfer it to the ocean energy systems. And here you have some example of it. For instance, we have a project which is named Mon Amour, run at France Energie Marine with different partners, including IFROMER, for instance, where we are deploying a research program to improve the monitoring of polyamide mooring lines, which are synthetic mooring lines that have interesting properties that are dampening the loads on the floaters. Could be floating offshore wind turbine, but also wave energy converters. And we are trying to improve the understanding of the fatigue behavior of this kind of mooring lines to improve the design of the floaters in general. On the same kind of approach, we are looking at dynamic power cable monitoring in the Dynamo project, which is another France Energie Marine project. In this project, we are looking at this very critical component that is the dynamic power cable that connects the floater, could be wave energy converters or floating tidal energy converters, to the export cable at the bottom of the ocean. And it's a quite fragile component. There is high risk of breakage, and then if it breaks, you lose the production of the machine. It's quite complex and expensive. So we are looking at the same kind of problem for this Dynamo project. We also have the RESCORE project, which is not for, say, a research program, but rather a resource center for ORE actors. So it's a web platform where we display all the metadata that are accumulated within France Energie Marine, meaning all the metadata regarding the deliverables that we have, but also the observations that we collect at sea on technologies. And some of them are also publicly available. Some of them are not, but you can ask us and we can then discuss with the owner to see whether they can share them and under which conditions. Regarding back to research, we were involved in a H2020 proposal project named Elements that was led by Nova Innovation with developing tidal energy converters. And this project ends in the deployment of one of the tidal energy converters from Nova Innovations in the area of Etel. On the top right, you have an illustration of the work for the deployments in this area, which is like a small river open to the ocean, located in Brittany, in the southwest, in the northwest of France. Okay, and in the same area, we are also, I would like also to mention the Tiger Interreg project that was launched a couple of years ago, which is the largest ever Interreg program, 46 million euros, fully dedicated to tidal energy converters with many important partners. For instance, in France, we have the Sabela technology. And so it's a major initiative for research in the frame of tidal energy. So there was also some project at IFROMER, which is one of the main research centers dedicated to marine science in France. And for instance, they were testing a 1 megawatt tidal energy converter concept for HydroCrest, which is 1 at 1/20 scale. And at the bottom, you can see an illustration of the wave-tongue testing with some measurements around the tidal energy converters that you can guess at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my screen, but it's vertical axis tidal energy converters, very promising technology. And I will speak a bit more about that. Another project in which IFROMER was involved in is the Resource Code project, funded by Ocean Aeronet, collaborative project with other partners, where they were able to develop web servers that give you access to an open source database and code that is used to exploit a 27-year high resolution wave hindcast over Western Europe. So it's very useful to estimate wave resource wherever you want, and also look at design conditions for your technologies. So very nice tool. I really encourage you to go on this. If I don't know if you can share the slide, but there is a hyperlink below the blue text here. Regarding demonstration project, so there is a major initiative in France right now, which is called the OpenSea Foundation. That is a foundation with the members you can see at the top. So my institute is part of the co-founders with IFROMER and Centrale Nantes. And you have also major companies involved in it. And the aim of this foundation is to gather all the test sites, offshore renewable energy test sites together, and to promote the development of them and to promote the access to this kind of test site. So very quickly, we have different test sites in France. I guess you know some of them. So Paimpol-Bréhat, which is here in the north of Brittany. It's a tidal energy converter test site. So it's very well-known test site in France. There has been at least 4 technology tested already there. So you can test full-scale machine. There was 4 of them already tested there. Then you have the Sainte-Anne-du-Port-Zic test site, which is just next to IFROMER in Brest, in Western Brittany, where you can do small scales, like 1/10 testing of floating offshore wind turbine, wave energy converters, possibly floating PV, photovoltaics. Then you have the same REF test site that was initially a wave energy converter test site, one of the first one in Europe, I guess. And it is now moving to a floating offshore wind with one prototype deployed for several years now, FloatGen, and also capability to host floating PV and H2 production as well. We have the Seneo test site, which is a tidal energy converter test site in a river environment for small scale testing, like 1/4 maybe, and already several prototypes being tested there. Very interesting site as well. And in the southwest, it's in the southeast, in Mediterranean Sea, it's a test site, but only for wind energy. So here on the right-hand side, you have some figures corresponding to the state of today and what is supposed to be tomorrow within maybe 5 years in terms of size of the test site and capacity and so on. Now, maybe one of the most interesting slides for you is, I guess it's actually my last slide, regarding the demonstration project. So there is only a few of them in France, but I think they are very solid. First one is a DeepWave project, which is a flap device that is supposed to be mounted on, and that is being tested at IFROMER at the Sainte-Anne-du-Port-Zic test site that I just introduced earlier. And the next step will be to deploy a demonstrator in the western part of Brittany on a dike with several units like this one. And the installation is planned for the third quarter of 2024. Second example that I'm showing here, it's the HydroQuest. So I'm just showing the same illustration as before, because I was lacking illustration with the RISE to share. But still, it's a very interesting project. As I said, they are developing a vertical axis tidal energy converters. And the next step, which is on this track, it's a 7 × 2.5 megawatt pilot farm in the Aldon, which is in the western part of France. And the installation is forecasted for 2025. So it's definitely a major initiative in the field of ocean energy in France. So I think that's it for me. And maybe as a concluding word, I would say that we have tried to move very fast in France, and we failed at several stages in the process of developing tidal energy converters and wave energy converters. But now we have very good example of companies that are doing a stage gating approach, meaning that they are validating their concept from the small scale in the lab, from intermediate scale at sea, and now moving to full scale, and now moving to pilot farm scale, which is definitely a good approach, and we can be very confident that there will be a very good feedback on their pilot farms and demonstrators that will influence the policy in France regarding ocean energy. And that's it for me.
Merci beaucoup, Jean-François. Very interesting. It's nice to hear that, in fact, that you also applied the stage gate approach. We discussed it a lot within the IEA-OES, especially for the wave energy sector, and that's also now used for the tidal sector. Very happy about that. It's also helping, in fact, to take decisions to go forward in technology development. But before we have the discussions, to the attendants, please put your questions also to Jean-François in the chat, and we will get to them at the end. And let's go now to Henry Jeffrey. And I don't think he needs an introduction, because whenever you come everywhere, everybody knows Henry. But he is the delegate for the United Kingdom in the IEA-OES. He's, yeah, I think principal investigator at the Edinburgh University, but leading a group on policies, but also having a very good overview of the technologies happening in the United Kingdom, and yeah, Scotland, Wales, England. It's a bit wider than only Scotland, Henry, today, for sure. But I know you have 12 minutes. I know there's a lot of things going on in the UK, but can you try to keep it in this time window?
Sure. Okay. First of all, I'm working on one screen today, so can I just check that you can see my screen?
Can you be a bit closer to the mic? I think it is a bit hard for the people.
Is that better now?
Yeah, slightly.
Okay. Yeah. So hopefully you can see my slides. Could you just confirm? Matthijs, could you confirm you can see my slides?
Jean-François had his thumb already up. Yes. I tried to save some bandwidth.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks very much, Matthijs, for that introduction. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Henry Jeffrey. I lead the Policy and Innovation Group at the University of Edinburgh, and I represent the UK government on this IEA technology collaboration programme for ocean energy. And I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes or so giving you an update of the progress that we've been making in the UK over the last year. So what I'll do is, and similar to Jean-François, I'll give you an update of the policies and our funding programmes, and update you on the research and innovation and the full-scale technology programmes and devices that we are deploying, and then finish with some strategic research and conclusions about our progress today. So first of all, starting with policies, and I'll break this down into the UK, Scotland and Wales, as Matthijs said. And at a UK level overall, we have a range of high-level strategic policies that aren't targeted at wave and tidal in particular, but do have an overall role in the development of renewable energy, and they all play some role in supporting the wave and tidal sector. So we have a net zero strategy, building back greener. We have our security strategy after the invasion of Ukraine. But we also have an environmental audit committee to make sure that the progression of renewables is done in a responsible way. And we've got an ongoing review of the way that we trade electricity in the UK, will lead to a more effective rollout of renewable energy, including wave and tidal energy. At the Scottish level, we also have a range of our own policies for Scotland. In Scotland, we're committed to net zero by 2045. We are in the we're in the process of developing our Scottish Energy and Just Transition Plan. It has not yet been published, but we're hoping to have 20 gigawatts of additional renewable capacity in place by 2030, and that we're hoping that will meet 50% of Scotland's current energy demand. But probably more closely related to ocean energy, we have Marine Scotland that control the planning of devices and development around Scottish waters, and they have their processes in place that are really quite effective, and many countries try to emulate this for the responsible development of our coastline in the waters, and they're really quite effective in deploying wave and tidal energy. Moving to Wales, they have their net zero strategic plan, and they have specific areas that they would like to do in tidal energy. They hope to have 10% of the tidal potential exploited along the Welsh coastline by 2025. They hope to have net zero in the public sector use by 2030, and 100% of demand in Wales from Welsh renewable energy by 2035. So some really quite progressive and attractive policies in place for the development of ocean energy and renewable energy in general. But probably the most significant policy development we've had in the UK over the past year is our Contracts for Difference. Contracts for Difference is our market pool policy for the deployment of renewables, and we have over the past year had a specific policy within the CFD programme for tidal energy. And so that's meant that there's been a 20 million fund put in place for the support of tidal energy, and this has led to over 40 megawatts of an allocation round spread across a number of technology developers. So Orbital Marine Power won 2 separate projects totaling just over 7 megawatts. Cymec Atlantis secured the biggest allocation at 28 megawatts, and Magellanus awarded just over 5.5. So really significant with regard to, for the first time, having this market pool policy to support not just the development, but the deployment and rollout of the tidal stream energy as we move towards commercialisation. The next auction round, or the next allocation round, is still in negotiation. It's AAR5, which is allocation round 5, and we hope that that will be equally successful in allocating funds for the deployment of tidal energy in the UK. But to support that deployment, we still need development, and so we still have a range of funding programs for underpinning and industrial innovation processes. We have our Innovation Council, the ARI, that is the overall umbrella organisation, going all the way from EPSRC, which is our underpinning science programme, through to Innovate UK, which deals with more industrial demonstration and innovation projects. And at the Scottish level, we have Wave Energy Scotland that deals with the research and development of the wave energy sector. And currently, despite Brexit, we still have access to Horizon Europe, and we have many projects that are still ongoing that are funded through the Horizon Europe programme that we're extremely thankful for at a UK level, and hopefully we can continue that collaboration in some form in the future. So moving then to what some of those projects are, I'll start with tidal stream. I'll start with underpinning R&D projects. Jean-François mentioned the Tiger project, which is an initiative between the UK and France, funded by the European programmes, looking at how we can have the most efficient and effective development of tidal stream in those 2 countries. Again, Jean-François mentioned the Element project with Nova Innovation, looking at the lifetime extension of tidal energy, making sure that we realise its full potential. And then the Max Blade project with Orbital Marine Power, looking at, as we move to larger and larger devices, we'll need larger and larger blades. And in a similar way to the wind sector, we need to make sure that there's efficient development of those blades to make sure we can realise the full potential of the tidal resources out there. So that's at an underpinning sort of innovation level. Moving then to the devices and demonstrations, We have the ONFE project with Nova Innovation that's funded 6 tidal devices, an array of 6 devices in the Shetland Islands. We've got ongoing operation of the Maygen project in the Pentland Firth. Orbital Marine Power have won a European Commission funded project, Forward 2030, that's looking at the development of upscaling the next iteration of their technology, along with ongoing demonstration of the Magellanes devices and the Nova Innovation devices at different locations around the UK and around Europe. Moving then to some highlights there, because I think it's worth noting that there is significant progress made in the tidal sector. I mentioned the CFD is a big step forward for the sector, with over 40 megawatts of allocation for the future being awarded to tidal stream. One of the recipients is Orbital Marine Power, and their device has been operational now since 2021. So really proving that this is a reliable technology with a peak power of over 2.5 megawatts. So really significant progress in improving the performance and reliability of these devices. Nova Innovation is making great progress with an option agreement from Crown Estate Scotland to develop a further array in the Shetland Islands. And Scotland's draft energy strategy that I mentioned earlier in the policy section, highlighting the potential of tidal stream, and really hope that there's going to be something significant and concrete in Scotland's energy strategy for tidal when it comes out later this year. Moving then to the WAVE projects, again I'll start with the underpinning research and innovation. We have a number of projects funded by WAVE Energy Scotland and the Engineering and Physical Science Research Council. The ones from WAVE Energy Scotland, or the most recent ones from WAVE Energy Scotland, are on quick connectors, so connecting the mooring and power cables to these devices, making sure that you've got a very efficient and effective mechanism for taking these devices on and off station, which is extremely important as you move through the development of the technology. They also, at WAVE Energy Scotland, have the Europe WAVE project, which is a collaboration between Spain, Scotland, and the European Commission for the development of the next generation and improved iterations of the wave energy sector. And then underpinning this is the EPSRC looking at the underpinning science in order to make sure we do have breakthroughs in the technology so we can allow the most efficient development of the wave energy sector. But although we have these underpinning subsystem projects, we also have the device projects. And so we now have, although these are not as big as the tidal stream projects, you can see there that these are still large devices that are part scale that are being tested in real sea conditions. And so you can see the 2 devices from the WAVE Energy Scotland programme of Motion Energy and AWS Ocean Energy, along with Bombora Wave Power, all undergoing sea trials at really quite a large scale in order to get the most learnings as we move to upscaling these devices so they're ready for demonstration at hopefully a full scale, hopefully in the not too distant future. And again, just to sort of highlight that we are making significant progress in the wave sector, and it's hopefully not too far behind the tidal sector. So we have the devices from WAVE Energy Scotland with both the AWS and the Motion devices, with the Motion devices now being showcased as an option for the alternative power supplies for the oil and gas sector, a real stepping stone for that technology as it moves towards grid-connected utility-scale power. Europe Wave bringing through the next generation of technologies that will allow improvements to be made. And again, the draft energy strategy for Scotland highlighting the potential for wave energy in Scotland. And currently, they have some draft text in there, but we hope to see something really concrete and meaningful as that draft energy strategy comes into the Scottish energy strategy later this year. Moving then to the facilities that we have. Those are the devices that we've deployed in the underpinning systems. We do have a wide range of facilities for both the development and the deployment and testing of these devices. Many of you will be familiar with EMEC, the European Marine Energy Centre in the Orkney Islands. that has tested many of the devices in Scotland, Europe, and around the world have come to EMEC to test. But we do have other facilities, both at a full-scale level and at an underpinning development level. So we have the PTEC test site, we have the Model-ized test site in different locations throughout the UK. But we also then have our underpinning facilities. You see the picture there of the flow wave test facility based at the University of Edinburgh, where we can test a full range of wave, tidal, and offshore wind devices. And we also have the new facility, the Fast Blade, which tests those new, longer tidal energy blades as the sector moves towards larger utility scale devices in the future. As long as we have the opportunity to deploy these devices, then it's important that we also have strategic research looking at how we roll out this technology. So we're not just doing 2 and 3 megawatt arrays. What happens is we move to deploy hundreds of megawatts and gigawatts of this technology. And we've got a range of strategic research that looks into how we enable that and realise the full benefits of that from a Supergen Marine programme. It's a flagship programme for research in the United Kingdom. And we've got a range of reports here. I've picked 5 of them that look at, first of all, the deployment modelling, looking at how much deployment that we could have, depending if we meet the set plan targets from the European Commission, indicating that we could have around 12 gigawatts in total of wave and tidal by 2050. It then looks at saying if we deploy that volume of wave and tidal in the UK, what will then be the economic benefit and return to the UK economy in terms of jobs and social benefits. And we then look at then the systems benefit. If you put 12 gigawatts of wave and tidal in the UK, then does it make the system easier to balance or harder to balance? And the answer is that it's easier to balance. You can look at the whole report and you save around £1 billion of balancing costs by 2050, which is very significant. That's around 7 or 8% of our total balancing costs. And then we've got 2 upcoming reports that look at then saying, okay, it's very important that we have to realise the full potential of this sector, that we are able to get the right balance of policies in place. And so we look at the balance of both technology innovations and market pool policies in order to make sure that the overall cost to the consumer is minimised and the return in the UK is maximised, as well as looking at the areas of innovation that will be required in order to make sure that as this sector progresses, it improves its performance, it increases its reliability, and becomes a very attractive solution as part of our energy mix in the future. So I'm sure I'm out of time now, but this is my final slide, Matthijs. So just to summarise, we now have the market pool mechanism in place, the CFD allocation round 4 with the 40 megawatts, round 5, and hopefully will also be extremely successful in allocating projects. It's really important that we have this in order that we can demonstrate arrays of tidal stream and hopefully wave energy in the not too distant future. We've got a good range of infrastructure in place for the testing and the development of these technologies. Research and innovation will still be required. It's still required in the wind sector, so we're still going to require it in the ocean energy sector to make sure that we improve the performance and reliability and costs of these devices. And I think it's now becoming extremely clear through the range of benefits that I highlighted that wave and tidal stream is a key technology in order to meet the UK's net zero targets and enable a just transition. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll look forward to questions in the combined Q&A session.
Thank you, Henry. Very interesting. I would like to tell the participants in this webinar, please use the Q&A for the questions. For Henry, in case of the CFD, already a question. How does it work? Is it possible as well for not UK developers to make use of the CFD? And why is the CFD in fact so important for the technology development? But first, I would like to go to a question which I have for François is you mentioned in the start already about the floating wind that we can learn from each other. how can we collaborate better with them? Maybe you can think already about an answer. What can we learn? But Evdokia had already a chance to look into her questions in the Q&A. So first to Evdokia, then to Jean-François on what can we learn from the floating wind, and then to Henry on the CFD. And in the meanwhile, maybe there are new questions coming up. Evdokia.
So looking at the chat, the question and answer section as well, about the administration barriers, I think it's a major barrier for the ocean energy sector development, and it's connected to a lot of other things that are going on. So there are some administrative barriers, and it takes a lot of time to get permits to put the device in the water. That will improve with the introduction of go-to areas and proper marine spatial planning, because then we know which are the areas that are hung up on like ocean energy or renewable energy in general, in offshore renewable energy in general. So that would reduce the load and the time that it is required to get the permit, but also because environmental issues are not really well defined. They're starting to get well defined now, but historically they haven't been. So that made the permitting process even harder. So that's what I meant with administrative barriers, and I think it's one of the main barriers in the sector.
Yeah, and I think there countries can learn from each other as well how they solve these issues. It's of course a national issue as well, because they're their own waters in that respect, but they can learn how to solve these issues. Regarding the collaboration with Asian countries in Horizon Europe, you mentioned on a global scale, is it possible that they join?
I'm not sure. I think it is possible, but I'm not sure if the funding will be available.
Yeah, okay, let's then. Knowing a bit more about the program itself, it is possible, but depends a bit if a country is associated, if you can get as well the funding. But collaboration, cooperation in projects is always possible. Just a few countries are accepted more for political reasons. Yeah, and you know, your last question is on the innovation fund. Can you make use of it? I think it's very important finance for the whole sector.
Yeah, I don't think we, as JRC, we will participate, but I'm not sure.
Okay, maybe you can try to find it out after the webinar.
Yeah.
And maybe in contact with Mathieu Grosjean. Jean-François, connection with floating winds.
Yes, thank you, Matthijs. As I said, I think there is many aspects that are similar between floating wind and wave energy converters or floating tidal energy converters. One of the most obvious is the environmental impacts of this kind of structures. So I think we should definitely use the knowledge that is developed thanks to floating wind, because they are going to commercial farms and so on. So there is some money spent in trying to better monitor and understand the interaction between the environment and these kind of structures. And on the technological part, as well, there are many components that are quite similar, such as mooring lines, anchors, dynamic power cables, even floaters. So that's the first axis of collaboration, trying to leverage the knowledge that is accumulated by this industry that is a little bit mature because it relies on bottom fixed offshore wind, and it has a bit more funding to support this kind of activity. So I think we should try to leverage this. And second point is maybe it's a bit too early, but I guess that co-use or mutualizations or even of the farms themselves or of the floaters is something we should try to look at, because then it could reduce the LCOE while possibly increasing the services to the grid by incorporating more complementarity in terms of resource over the year, which is, I think it's a very good axis to think about. So basically not thinking only on LCOE, but also more generally on the services to the grid to provide the European countries with a more stable and reliable power system to be aware.
Well, I agree. Security of supply is very important. Right. It goes sometimes above price in that respect. We have to advocate. Henry, CFD. Can you tell a bit more? Is that also a solution for France, or is it also a solution for other countries in the world?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the CFD, the Contracts for Difference, is just one flavour of market pool policy. And so it's not essential that it's a CFD that's used by countries around the world. But it is essential that as a sector moves from like a research and innovation sector, that with the wave and tidal sector would have been, sort of, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, as you move then to being a meaningful part of any country's energy mix, then there needs to be a transition from innovation funding, or a change in the balance from innovation and demonstration funding through to deployment funding, such as a market pool mechanism, and the one that we have in the UK is the CFD, or Contract for Difference. And this has been the case in any of the successful sectors that you look at. So probably the ones closest to us and probably most sort of transferable is the wind and PV sectors. They've both gone through this journey of like having underpinning research and innovation and demonstration, but then in order to make those technologies a mainstream part of any country's energy mix, they've all required market pool funding in some form, balanced with innovation funding to continually drive down the cost. And so the wave and tidal sector will be no different. We're just at that point in the sector's evolution that we're at that transition point of moving from like innovation funding and demonstration funding then to saying, okay, we also then need the market pool funding so we can deploy meaningful amounts of this technology and learning by doing, but also then giving a clear line of sight to the investment community that a country does have a serious intention to deploy this technology and allow it to be a future part of the energy mix. And so, although we are doing this in the UK, we're not the only countries that are like sort of having some form of market pool or support mechanism. But for this sector to be successful overall, then more and more countries will need to follow suit in the coming months and years.
Okay. No, thank you, Henry. I'm very cautious on time. Anna, the secretary of the OES, so as always, take care for it. She's there. Thank you, Anna, for organizing this webinar. I would like to thank you all the speakers and give an applause. What I took as well from Evdokia is the regulatory environment is important, but more needs to be done. From Jean-François Filipot from France, working together as well with the offshore wind, but also really very cautious thinking about the stage gate procedure to really take proper steps in the development to build up as well confidence in the technologies together with the companies. I think that's important. And also with Henry Jeffrey, thinking about you need test sites, you need the infrastructure, but also the regulatory side on the finance, bringing the technologies to the market. He mentioned as well that some of the technology are ready for a longer period of time in the water. And I think that's very good news. There's really progress. And I know that Henry is already for more than 10 years in the sector, and that he's really monitoring the progress. And to hear it from him, I'm very happy about that. And I think that's important for future investment, but also motivating for developers in all different types of parts of the world. Thank you all so much. Thank you for the attendees. We are organizing these webinars regularly, different country sites. This is part of our work in the OES Technology Collaboration Platform, and to really give inspiration for other countries to develop the technology on a global level. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next webinar. Thank you.